I chose the article, Does 8th grade mathematics teaching in the United States align with the NCTM standards? These are the results from the TIMSS 1995 and 1999 video studies. So a short summary of this article is that this article focuses on the teaching practices of 8th grade mathematics teachers. This was a two-part study that used randomly selected nationally representative U.S. 8th grade mathematics lessons, and they were videotaped. These videos were a part of the TIMSS 1995 and 1999 video studies. These videos analyzed the teaching practices of the lesson to see if they were standards-based. Their goal of the study was to paint a national level picture of 8th grade mathematics teaching and to identify changes in classroom teaching during a time of active national level debates, and it also called for substantive changes in classroom practices. A little background knowledge from this article is that TIMSS stands for Trends in International Mathematics and Science Studies. TIMSS provides reliable data on mathematics and science achievement of U.S. students compared to students from other countries. This data is collected from 4th and 8th grade students every 4 years since 1995. In this article, they compared classroom teaching found in the TIMSS national samples of lessons in the U.S. with recommendations contained in the NCTM standards. So in the 1995 video sample, 81 randomly selected 8th grade mathematics lessons were chosen, and in the 1999 sample, there were 83 randomly selected 8th grade mathematics lessons. Also, in both the 1995 and 1999 video, there were lessons from other countries. In the 1995 sample, there were lessons from Germany and Japan, while in the 1999 study, there was lessons from Australia, the Czech Republic, Hong Kong Special Administrative Region of the People's Republic of China, the Netherlands, and Switzerland. Also, the last thing of background knowledge that I thought was important was codes were developed during the 1999 study to identify variables that were meaningful to the NCTM standards and contain theoretical or empirical connections to students' mathematics learning. So since these variables were coded in 1999, the video data from 1995 was recoded using the same coding scheme from the 1999 video. And also the same group that coded the 1999 video also coded the 1995 videos. The research questions that were asked in this article were, what are the teaching practices of 8th grade mathematics teachers around the country? And do they implement the suggestions from a standards-based curriculum? So when looking at this presentation, I didn't include all the data that was presented in the article. I just chose a couple of the items to talk about. However, later on, I will talk a little bit about what the data did find over the process standards. But this first piece of data that I chose to include, teachers were asked, to what extent do you feel that the lesson you taught today is in accord with current ideas about teaching and learning of mathematics? So when we look at our data over on the right, we can see that 86% of the teachers in the 1999 study answered a fair amount or a lot, while in 1995 there was only 70% answered a fair amount or a lot. So they thought they were in accord with the ideas of teaching and learning of mathematics. There was only 1% that answered not at all in 1999 and 7% in 1995. We can see that many of the teachers believe they taught using the process standards from NCTM. The next piece of data that I chose to include in my presentation is the relationship among problems. These were determined by the coders and categorized in 4 different ways. We have mathematically unrelated, repetition problems, thematically related, and mathematically related. So we can see, looking at our data on the right, in 1995, 4% was mathematically unrelated, and in 1999, 8% was mathematically unrelated. This means that the problems that were presented in the lesson were not related thematically to any of the previous problems. When we look at repetition problems, we can see that 75% in 1995 were, and only 68% in 1999 were. This means that these problems that the students were working on were the same or mostly the same as a problem presented in the lesson. Now we're going to go to thematically related. We can see that 7% in 1995 and 9% in 1999 were thematically related. This means that they related to a preceding problem only by a similar topic in the lesson. And the last thing is mathematically related. We can see that 15% was mathematically related in 1995, and in 1999, 16% was. This means that the problems were related to a preceding problem in the lesson in a significant way. Like I said, I did not include all the data that was given in this article. However, there was a lot of data. I will summarize what the data did find. After looking at the 2 studies, the authors suggest that the classroom practices were not consistent with the process standards of principles and standards. There was evidence that classroom teaching was more aligned in 1999 than in 1995. However, they only found 14% of the measures in the lessons presented in this article, which is not very much at all. When we look at problem solving, most problems were of low procedural complexity. This means that the problems required 4 or fewer steps to solve the problem. The next data section that was involved in this article was reasoning and proof, and in the lessons provided by the teachers, it was rarely evident. The NCTM standard of communication, students often participated in presenting alternative solution methods, which is good because NCTM wants you to talk it through, talk it out, find different ways of solving the problem. The connections section of the NCTM standards showed that most problems were routine exercises rather than applications. This means that the problems required students to solve them by executing procedures and getting a correct result rather than making connections. The last section it gave a lot of data on was representations, and they were somewhat evident. Most problems did not incorporate conventional mathematics symbols, but they did include at least one problem that had a diagram, table, or graph. So the big thing at looking at this article is that the videotapes that were shown showed that most of the teachers in these videos reflect traditional teaching methods rather than what the teachers believed of a teaching of standards-based curriculum. A potential impact from this article is that although these studies happened in 1995 and 1999, we still see the effects of traditional teaching practices nowadays because teachers don't want to change from what they know to something new. I think this article proved that there is still much to be done before the teaching practices in the U.S. change from traditional teaching to standards-based teaching. Here is my reference in case you do decide that you want to go look at the data more in detail. There was a lot of data that I just did not have time to present, but I tried to quickly summarize what it did state. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a great weekend. Bye.